Showdown. In this week's episode, we'll be touching on a town hall which was able to give fans the opportunity to ask Haslam Sports Group exactly what they plan for the Dome. We're also going to be learning about how the funding could be figured out, how the Haslams feel about their chances to get that state funding, and you'll hear from the head coach of the Cleveland Browns about where he thinks the team should be playing in the future. But first, let's start with that town hall taking place in Hudson, trying to see exactly where fans stand, but also flat out if they want the Dome built in Brook Park or not.
Explain to me why Summit County, Akron care about this issue.
A Hudson Town Hall hosted by State Senator Casey Weinstein on Thursday, giving the public the chance to directly ask Haslam Sports Group why the public should help fund a new stadium when there are greater needs in other places.
Here and listening to somebody not only run long, but talk about protecting the profits of a man who made over $200 million last year and asking for public funds as our veterans, our food banks, and our libraries and our education are being defunded just seems morally repugnant to me.
HSG representatives showed the community the exact payment plan and precisely where that money would go.
Phase one would be a mix of, it would be 2 hotels supporting the airport, which is badly needed. It would be about 600 multifamily residential units. We talked about housing shortages. And it would be about 200,000 to 250,000 square feet of retail, not traditional big box retail primarily, more experiential retail that would drive people and complement the Dome.
While they did not downplay the issues that some see as greater than a new Browns stadium, they did say they believe the new Dome provides opportunity.
Don't want to get combative. This is really, we see this project as a great opportunity for our state, and that's where our focus is on this. Understand that there are many more pressing needs that are more important than a stadium project. Like, I totally get that, but I also see that the fiscal impact and the results of a project like this, if it's done responsibly, can far benefit our organization, and there can be great benefits to the community.
For many, that just wasn't good enough, and it seems the crowd wanted more from the Browns on who was truly benefiting.
What is the percentage of benefit to the community versus benefit to the Haslam Sports Group?
All right, we got a lot of hands up.
I couldn't give you that exact number.
I spoke with Senator Weinstein about that town hall, and he said if there was a vote today, he would vote down the budget and vote down that Browns amendment part of it. This goes along with new legislation that was actually filed this week, an amendment to the budget by a House representative out of Parma that wants the Browns funding portion stripped out of the budget. Here's a quote from the amendment filing, and in particular from a press release coming out of State Representative Sean Patrick Brennan's office, saying, quote, "I am gravely concerned that the proposed state budget is seemingly prioritizing billionaire sports owners over the needs of Ohio's senior citizens, families, children, and disabled." He goes on to say we should be prioritizing the state providing real property tax relief to homeowners. The Ohio State House is not the personal bank account of Ohio's billionaires. It is a repository of the treasure of hard-working Ohioans meant to be used to meet their urgent and diverse needs. This goes directly against how House Republicans are feeling about the proposed budget. They believe that an investment into a new Browns Dome is a good one. 19's Dan DeRose breaks that down.
When you look at the power structure down in Columbus, the most powerful obviously is the governor. Now, the second and third most powerful are the Speaker of the House and really the chair of the Finance Committee, and both of those are Republicans, as is the governor. And when the second and third most powerful politicians in Columbus step up to a podium, as they did this week, and say that the way to fund the Brown Stadium is $600 million in bonds, well, you have to pay attention. Remember, that goes against what Governor DeWine wants to do. Let's talk about the financing. Project total $2.4 billion. Haslams have already said they're going to put up half of that at $1.2 billion. Next, there has to be a local contribution, whether this is county or city or Brook Park, and some way they're going to have to find that $600 million. Not quite sure how they're going to do that as of yet. Then there's the state contribution, $600 million in bonds. Yes, basically a loan against the state. And that loan gets paid back over 25 years and $30 million a year. Now, the Browns have put in or said that they will put in an insurance policy to make sure the state can make those payments. But again, the Speaker of the House and the Finance Committee chair say, yes, the numbers that show from the Browns and their own numbers are that the tax revenue that's going to be generated from this super project will be more than enough to make that $30 million payment.
Obviously want to highlight the House version of the budget does include authority to issue $600 million in bonds relating to the Cleveland Browns Brook Park expansion program. This is a once-in-a-lifetime project in many ways. This is a $1.2 billion is coming from the private sector. There has been a proposal for $600 million from the local governments, and the state has been asked to issue bonds of $600 million, which would happen throughout as a part of this budget. I point out this is in many ways, to my mind, is like a loan. The team has given, I think, very reasonable metrics on what type of increased economic activity is going to be associated with this project. We believe that that economic activity will essentially pay back the amount of those bonds. The team has also proposed to put a bond on deposit that will grow over time, which is further used to kind of safeguard the state, make the taxpayers whole, make sure those bonds can be repaid. And this is very similar to what we do every 2 years in the capital budget. Every 2 years, Ohioans have authorized this program again and again and again to say that we're going to issue issue bonds to do capital improvements in our local communities. So this is obviously a bigger project than a splash pad in Circleville, but it's the same kind of concept. How do we have cultural facilities and entertainment type venues around Ohio? This is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I've spent my entire life, hearing some people say, not me, but other people say, there's nothing to do in Ohio. Where, what are kids going to do? What are we, why don't we have some of these other kind of elite entertainment options that other states have? Well, this is the opportunity. And I think when you consider that this is going to be essentially the premier entertainment facility in all of America once it's done, I think when the ribbon's cut, Ohioans are going to be proud that we continued this tradition of having some involvement in these exceptional projects, and that is going to be a part of our budget proposal. I've said to our caucus, if I was emperor for a day, I don't know if any state in America would do stadium deals, but this is the norm now, right? I mean, Las Vegas was the most recent stadium, I think had almost double the public involvement that is being proposed here for the state of Ohio. Tennessee, a state that a lot of our members like to look at and emulate, I think they're talking about almost $1.2 billion in taxpayer involvement in that stadium. These are huge economic drivers. We're going to have multiple Super Bowls, played in the stadium. Hopefully an Ohio team is playing in one of them. We'll see. We're going to have the national championships. We're going to, this is going to be a destination center. And I really do think, when the ribbon is cut here and people walk through the door, I think people are going to be happy that this is in Ohio.
On the project in Brook Park, the Cleveland Browns project, as it's called, this is a $3.6 billion economic development project. It's the largest in the history of the state, with the exception of the Intel project, about $100 million more than the battery plant down in Fayette County. Of that project, $2.4 billion of it is paid for with private money. The stadium part is 2.4, but half of that is private money. And they're proposing 600 local and 600 state. Of course, it's this bond project that would be paid out over 25 years at about $30 million a year. Now, someone asked me the other day, he said, well, these are general obligation bonds, aren't they? Yeah, they are. That's different from a revenue bond, which I explained in my last press conference what a revenue bond is. But this acts like, in my mind, a revenue bond, because the new taxes within the four corners of this tract, it's not there'll be a water park 12 miles away maybe, or some new, within this tract, their calculation, and we've sent it to the treasurer's office, we've sent it to OMB, we've sent it to lots of people and everybody, but their calculation is that all of this money will come back to the state, and in fact, the money that the state will be paying out, that there will be a positive back to the state starting in 2029. got to build it out. It's going to take 3 or 4 years. And the fact that the organization is willing to guarantee that, the recovery, and that they're putting up a $35 million cash bond, which none of these other actors do, by the way. Neither of those things happen. I think it makes sense to go forward with that.
Now, it appears the House will vote on this budget plan, the $600 million in bonds, on April 9th. That's next week. Now, what will be interesting is that this project will then have to go to the Senate. It has to be voted on there, and then it has to go to the governor's desk. Now, I did reach out to the governor's office this week. They said they are committed and still think that this is not the way to go. The governor is committed to his plan of doubling the tax on sports gambling companies and using that money to pay for the stadium. So there's still going to be a fight. We'll have to see if the governor vetoes any plan that comes to his desk like this that doesn't represent the way he wants to pay for the stadium. Dan DeRose, 19 News.
And coming up after the break, I interviewed a reporter with The Athletic who was down at the ownership meetings in Florida. What Jimmy Haslam had to say about his confidence in the team's move. Plus, we break down what City Council believes would be an appropriate time for the team to move and why they say it's not right now. Welcome back. The NFL's ownership meetings were being held in Florida this week, and earlier on, I spoke with The Athletic's Zach Jackson about what exactly Jimmy Haslam had to say and why he believes the funding is absolutely on the way.
He laid out June 30th, which is the date they'll find out about the state funding. It could be before that. That's the deadline. But, you know, I have tried to leave the local politics to the people that are in that. I cover local bad football. The Browns have gone down this road, and they are determined to go down this road. And really, it's now in the politicians' hands. It's in the hands of people either coming to a middle ground or drawing a hard line, and we see where this funding goes. So, you know, I would have assumed a year ago, even 6 months ago, that this thing was all but a done deal. I do think it will head to Brook Park, but I'm kind of waiting like everybody else to see what the next stage and the next steps are going to be.
But he did say that they will know by June 30th, right?
Yes. I mean, they could be well on their way by then, with the goal being in early 26 to put shovels in the ground.
And the only other thing I know that he did discuss potentially is that they're not necessarily closing the door on downtown. Did he also say something similar to that, or at least that's still open?
Yeah, that's plan B. I mean, it's Brook Park or renovation. There's no secret door or extra plan unless something goes completely sideways, right? Like they know what the lease terms are, how many years are left, what they want to do, and they have been clear in outlining it, putting out the same press release 3 or 4 times in different fashions, and they're just waiting for the funding and for, obviously there was going to be pushback, right? Of course the city's going to fight back on this stuff, so the rest of us are just kind of spectators in this.
So if the stadium is built in Brook Park, a lot of changes are going to need to be made, and that is exactly what they discussed at this week's City Council meeting. 19's Brittany Weir breaks it down.
I think that if we build this, it's going to be the greatest project in the history of Cuyahoga County, and it's going to be right here in our backyard, and I'm very proud of it.
Right. But it just has to be right.
Everything has to be right.
Brook Park Mayor Edward Orcutt sticking to his promise of keeping City Council updated with every step of this multi-billion-dollar project. And one topic that he made sure to address right out of the gate is comments that were made by the Haslams during a press conference saying they would need to go back to Plan B, which would include doing renovations at the downtown Browns stadium.
And that was probably maybe a half a sentence out of, 30 minutes of Q&A.
I felt he had to make a statement. I mean, he gets whacked when you look at the Browns article and you go to the comments and he gets torn apart. It was probably time for him to say something about the quarterback and about this move thing here, because you meet with him, you hear things, and you do report it back to us, which is appreciated.
Another topic that has come up time and time again is that funding and how the city of Brook Park is going to pay for their portion.
The other $600 million they were asking from Cuyahoga County and from the city of Brook Park. Obviously, we cannot borrow $300 million. We just don't have that power. So they were looking to the county to be able to issue the bonds.
Cuyahoga County Executive Chris Ronayne has been adamant that he does not see this as a positive project.
Have adjusted numbers now for $422 million from the city of Brook Park and $178 million to the county. County executive still hasn't committed at all. We have not committed at all as well.
Mayor Orcutt also explaining that if the dome does come to Brook Park, they're going to need more first responders and city employees.
Once that dome's here, we have to have more police, more fire, more service department workers, and we have to make sure that we have our portion for capital repairs to that stadium.
Essentially creating hundreds of new jobs in Brook Park.
Because everything that we see is that this thing is going to be a sensational project that will generate a ton of revenue.
Reporting, Brittany Weir, 19 News.
While Brook Park is ready to go on construction for a new dome, Cleveland City Council believes now is not the right time for the Browns to consider a move. 19's Caitlin McCarthy explains why.
Save the Browns! 1997 was an exciting time for Browns fans. Construction for the current Lakefront Stadium was underway.
Those of you who are here in brown and orange, you're in the right colors, the same colors that you'll be in 828 days. They'll be on the field doing pregame warm-ups at 828 days in the greatest football facility in the entire world.
The new Cleveland Browns were set to take the field in 1999. It was like a homecoming after Art Modell suddenly moved the team to Baltimore. It was a new era for fans.
Here we go, Brownies! Here we go! Hoo, hoo.
Now, less than 30 years later, the stadium is about to be completely paid off. But the Haslams say at the end of their lease in 2028, they will leave the lakefront and head to a domed stadium in Brook Park, a move that some argue feels eerily similar to 1995 and the move to Baltimore. City leaders like Councilman Chris Harsh don't want to see the team anywhere other than downtown.
What kind of bothers me about the conversation about moving now is that the stadium's only 28 years old. We're about to pay it off entirely in the next 2 or 3 years. That's when the economic benefits of having the team downtown really kicks in.
The city is projected to have the stadium paid off by 2028. Harsh says that's when the city will really start to benefit from its investment.
We're about to start making money off that investment in the year 2028, and now they want to move the team. Now the 28-year-old stadium isn't good enough. There's another 30, 40 years of life left in that stadium. We should invest in the stadium to keep it up and running, which we do a pretty good job of. The stadium's in good shape. But let's enjoy football on the lake like we have for the last 100 years and just focus on winning games.
The Browns want $1.2 billion in public funding to build a new stadium, $600 from the state and $600 from the county in Brook Park. That doesn't sit right with Harsh.
If the Browns leave, not only do we lose that economic gain, but we will also be paying through our taxes to the state or the county or somehow the cost of building a new facility.
A move that Harsh says is insulting to what Clevelanders have invested in the downtown stadium.
And that's just kind of offensive that we have to pay for our own economic decline.
In downtown Cleveland, Caitlin McCarthy, 19 News.
All right, Caitlin, thanks so much. Now's the time to get to our poll of the week from last week. We asked you all, would you visit the Browns Brook Park Dome outside of game days? And I won't go regardless seemed to win quite a bit there. 37%, 33% said yes, and 30% saying no. As for this week, we want to know how you feel about ticket costs potentially rising with a new Dome stadium. Yes or no? You can answer that right now at cleveland19.com/vote. We'll get your answers next week. And coming up after the break, the Kelsey brothers chime in on how they feel about a potential Browns move. But first, if you want to see any of our previous coverage of the Stadium Showdown, go ahead, scan the QR code on your screen right now. Every single episode, every single bit of coverage, right at your fingertips. Welcome back. On the Kelsey Brothers New Heights podcast, they saw the new renderings for the Browns Brook Park Dome for the first time. So let's get to their reactions.
The Browns tweeted out a look at a proposed new indoor stadium.
It's something really stupid out in Brook Park that they're trying to get everybody excited about, the stadium no longer being in downtown Cleveland.
I don't know what it is about us. It feels better when it's downtown.
It's way better. They just don't want to pay for it, Travis. So, yeah, looks beautiful. Great rendering. It's going to be fun driving out there.
I'll tell you what, though, they did it with this rendering. This thing looks sweet.
It doesn't matter how cool it is. I'm not going to like it. I like the old stadium because it's downtown. I'd rather play in a dilapidated stadium than this.
This looks epic.
It looks great.
It looks like some shit out of like Star Wars.
It does look pretty cool.
Do you at least agree that an indoor stadium is kind of going against, the nature of living up there on the lake?
I don't like anything about this. I don't like that it's not downtown. I don't like that it's indoor. I don't like anything about this. And I'm sorry if maybe I'm so detached from Cleveland that I'm not in the majority here. I don't know what the majority of Clevelanders want, which is really what is most important.
Yeah.
All I know is I like when the elements play a role in the game. I like when snow is involved. We had an awesome playoff game here at the link this year in the snow against the Rams that wouldn't have happened with an indoor stadium. I don't like indoor stadiums. I don't care. Put a jacket on and go watch football. I don't like indoor stadiums.
Now, to their credit, they both admitted that they have not stayed in Cleveland in a long time and will go with whatever Cleveland Browns fans want. But as you saw from our study last week, more than 50% of people that are in Northeast Ohio that we surveyed believe it's not necessarily the greatest move. Well, now to the Browns themselves and head coach Kevin Stefanski speaking in Florida about where he believes the team should be playing and why he believes the fans should really be considered.
Well, I don't know anything about stadiums, but I do know something about teamwork. And I just, I don't pay real close attention, but I do know this. When you're talking about these type of things, you need to work together. So that's state, that's city, that's county, that's the Browns. And I trust in all those people to work together to get something done for our fans. I think that's the big part of this is getting something done for the fans of this team, all of Northeast Ohio. I think it'll be important, but it goes back to working together, which is something I know a little bit about.
That was the time of our show where we answer your questions, breaking down how you feel about a Browns move, but also trying to walk you through the complexities of it. Let's start here with Dan Paul. How many sold-out events would a stadium with 75,000 seats need to have annually be enough profit to pay back taxpayers? Great question here. And the answer is, it depends on who you ask. According to Cuyahoga County, in order for them to pay back the money, them being the Browns, realistically, they would have to sell out every single game, every single bit of parking, and yeah, every single event. When you ask the Cleveland Browns, they believe that it's a little bit more simple. According to them, look, they feel like they're going to be able to get enough taxpayer money from events, from merchandise, things like that to pay it off. So it really depends on who you want to believe here. But of course, Cuyahoga County is saying it's not going to be paid back the way that they think it is. The Browns say it'll be paid back and then some. Let's get to the next question here, courtesy of Dave Roberts. What would they do with the old stadium, they being downtown, and the city of Cleveland? Let it sit empty for 30 years before they decide to tear it down? We don't know yet. Every rendering that we have seen about the potential future of the waterfront has included, in some aspect, a stadium. So we don't know what the future of that area would look like without it. We also have not heard from the city of Cleveland on if they were to build a dome downtown, what their plan was around that, what exactly it would entail as far as that old stadium. Would it be building a roof on top of it? Would it be moving it? Would it be demolishing it? We don't know that as of right now, but I do think it's important. Every single time we have heard about the future of the waterfront, that future has included a stadium. There has been no future, according to the city of Cleveland, that would not entail the Browns staying. Next question here, John Hurley asking, why did we build a relatively new stadium if it was constructed so badly? Shouldn't the city get money back from the bad decisions about that one? The answer is no. The stadium's going to be paid back in a couple of years. And the stadium's not built badly. I want to be very clear on that. It's just the Browns are not liking the way that it could be adjusted into a domed stadium. And really, they want control of the whole property. So the city won't get back any money on any of this. In fact, in a couple of years, when the dome's paid off, that thing's clean. They don't have to worry about any of it, and that's why the city wants to keep the Browns downtown, because they'd be able to have a free stadium, at least as of 2028. So it's not built poorly, and the money wouldn't really go anywhere. It's just the Browns really want their own piece of land. Next question, courtesy of Troy Harris. How is it possible for an owner to challenge a city law? Why isn't the NFL stepping in? If Cleveland were to lose, can the city own their historical franchise like Green Bay? Let's start with the beginning of this. It's actually not a city law, it's a state law. The Modell Law was put in place by the state of Ohio following Art Modell's moving of the team to Baltimore. But basically, they can challenge anything. It's just whether or not it's a valid challenge, right? You can challenge any law. It would eventually be decided in court, but it's if it's valid. And that is why the Haslams are doing it, because they want to determine whether it's constitutional or not. Why isn't the NFL stepping in? This is a state law. No place for the NFL, unfortunately, for those that are hoping that it could get overturned. And then lastly, if Cleveland were to lose, can the city own their historical franchise like Green Bay? They would have had to do that as soon as the new Browns came back in the late 90s. The thing with Green Bay versus Cleveland, Green Bay, Wisconsin is actually the owner of the Green Bay Packers. The people own the team. That's not the case here in the city of Cleveland. The Haslams own the Cleveland Browns. So they can move it wherever they want. They can take the records wherever they want. If they were to move the team anywhere else, that would be the Cleveland Browns in a different location. That is the big difference between those two, and that is why the city doesn't really have any ownership. It's just the name that's on the team. Of course, if you have any questions that you'd like answered on our show, go ahead. Scan that QR code right now. Really love to hear from all of you. Really love the great questions. Hoping to get some more for next week. And that is it for this episode of Stadium Showdown. Of course, all of our episodes are available online at cleveland19.com. We'll be right back here next week with another episode, of course, airing Fridays at 6:30. For now, I'm Jeff Slauson with 19 News. Have a great day. We'll have much more in the coming days.